Welcome everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Sector Smart series at the Capital Analyst. Today we have with us Gunjan Kabra. Gunjan is currently working as an equity analyst with Niveshai, a SEBI-registered boutique investment advisory firm. She actively shares her own investment insights on her blog, The Investing Tales. Head over to gunjankabra.com to check out the amazing perspectives she shares on companies, economics, and sectors of the Indian economy. After completing her BSc in economics, Gunjan straightaway plunged into the world of investing. She is a strong believer in India's volume-based growth story and actively tries to capture that in her analysis. Today, we are indeed privileged to have her with us, and she will be sharing her deep dive analysis of the Indian textile industry with us. So, over to you, Gunjan.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Um, yeah, super excited to do the presentation today. So before I start, just a disclaimer. Nivesha Investment Advisor manages three portfolios on small case, and I'm the analyst there. So for any queries or questions, you can always contact on the email ID mentioned, and for any follow-up questions on the sector. And none of the stocks discussed or mentioned in the presentation are a recommendation. Please do your own due diligence before investing, and also consult your financial advisor before investing. So yeah, let's begin with the Indian textile industry, which is the sector I'm going to cover today. So whenever I, start my presentation or my report, I always, just in the beginning, I mention, how I have come across the sector and why did I, choose this sector? Because I think this is like a basic question which everyone has. How do you identify a sector? How do you, why this sector is so important and why have you zeroed down on the sector? So let me start with this sector. So by the time, let me tell you, by the time got when I started to research on this sector, and till by the end when I zeroed down on this sector that this sector is investable, the investment thesis or the approach was completely different. So I actually figured out that, like 2 years back, just at the beginning of my career, I was given two textile companies to research on. And that point of time, I actually didn't realize that, why these two companies are different from each other. So when I got to research on this sector now, of course, with my research process has evolved, I understood that, okay, so after reading the con calls, I understood that this sector has major global macro tailwinds, and this sector is going to benefit. Now, how do you take exposure to this sector? Because as an investor, all of us have a checklist, right? Because this point has to be checked before I invest in the sector. So one of the points for me is the company should have a sustainable competitive advantage. Now, in this sector, it was difficult to find a company who has a sustainable competitive advantage because it is competing globally as well as in India. You will understand this in greater detail in the presentation. So we realized that, Niveshai, that you have to take a basket approach. Now allocate some part of the decide how much you want to allocate to the sector. Take a basket approach. Why a basket approach? You'll get to understand in the presentation and move on. So this was a strategy that we decided to do. And I thought of, okay, this was a key learning for me that, every sector has to be analyzed in a different way, be very, very dynamic and to the emerging points. And actually, I think this is the beauty of Indian equity markets. Okay. So now, why Indian textile industry? It's the second largest employer after agriculture. Female employment is on a large scale. If I compare it in the garment segment, female employment is on a large scale. It contributes around 5% to India's GDP, 7% to the industrial output in value terms, and 12% to the country's export earnings. Also, we have a presence across the value chain. Raw material abundance is there in our country. We have a strong raw material base, and we are the second largest manufacturers. So the last 3 points, all these points are very, very important to be competitive in long run. So this sector, I believe that it has to be a priority of the government's industry list. And going, and this sector support now. So Maslow's economic theory, with Maslow's hierarchy theory, which it basically says that, clothing, food, and shelter is like the basic fundamental need. Okay. So whereas this industry is not at all defensive, it is not uncorrelated with the economy growth and economic cycle, just like FMCG, where the demand would be stable over the years. But this is not the case. It's highly cyclical because of the raw material cycle, because of the demand. It works in tandem with the economic cycle, right? So, that way it's completely different, unlike what we normally think. So this chart basically tells us that how the clothing utilization, the blue line in the chart describes how the clothing utilization has decreased over time by 36% of in the last 15 years. So the number of time garments is worn has reduced by 36% before it ceased to be used, right? So the clothing utilization has decreased, and this is nothing but the fast fashion trend, and which we all know because of social media. If you're going on a trip, you need to have like huge number of clothes. It was not in the last or maybe few years back. And what are the macro tailwinds in this industry happening right now? So first is the China Plus One strategy. Now, what is the strategy? China Plus One strategy basically means that after the pandemic, major players, not only in textile but also in other sectors, they have realized that we need to de-risk the supply chain. We cannot be dependent on one country or one region for our supply, because China is the production and they also govern the prices, demand, supply in a lot of commodities or a lot of industries. So the major global suppliers actually realize that we need to de-risk the supply chain and move and have an alternative supplier, have an alternative supplier. So that's how, and in this industry, India is the best next alternative for the global players. So this is how this is what is China Plus One strategy all about, and it's not just confined to China. Like suppose if Bangladesh is the major apparel exporter, so the companies who are dependent on Bangladesh will also move on to other nations, move on to countries or other for their supply. So this is what China Plus One strategy is all about. Cotton banned by the okay. So the next is cotton banned by US from Xinjiang region. Now, when all of this was taking place, the US actually banned cotton from Chinese to enter their markets. Now, 80% of the cotton production in China is from this region, and it contributes around 20% to the global trade. So if there is a ban on any fabric, any yarn produced from this cotton would not be allowed to enter the US market. So this, if it is contributing around 20% in the overall trade, then it is a huge it is implied that there would be a trigger in the global trade. There would be a shift in the global trade. So this was also evident in many of the companies' results. So this is one of the factors which is, benefiting India currently, and consolidation in the industry. Also, after the pandemic, like discussion with various industry people, also industry management and everyone, we got to know that there is massive consolidation in the industry. Now, what will happen is, for instance, if H&M has 71 suppliers in the country, in our country, then the tail end suppliers, the smaller ones, would be not in their list anymore. So the market is not reducing. The larger brands will gain market share at the expense of the smaller ones, right? So this is how the major listed players will benefit. Now, understanding the textile value chain. So let's understand which part of the value chain holds the most value. So let's figure that out. And before that, let's understand some macro data and then we'll come to micro data. So this is the global apparel market where if you see the major growth is going to be led by China and India. And China is around, the growth expected is around 11%, whereas in India, it's about 10%. So the major growth in the global apparel market is going to be led by these two countries. Whereas if you see the world growth rate is very low. Okay, so majority how the Indian companies will benefit is by gaining market share from the macro tailwinds discussed in the previous slides. So this is a major consumption market of global of apparels. So EU is around 17.11%, followed by the US and the China. So these are the major consuming markets of apparels. So yeah, so in this chart, basically we are talking about the category-wise share of global TMA trade. So if you see the pie chart, it contributes, the apparel segment actually contributes around 58% to the global trade, and followed by fabrics, which is around 19%. So yeah, and these are the leading textile and apparel exporters. So if you look at this table, the first line basically tells us about China, where the market share is around 34% right now. So in 2015, it used to be around 39%. So China has been losing market share in in this sector, and this pandemic has actually accelerated this trend. The gain in market share in the apparels is by Vietnam and Bangladesh because they have built a very strong garmenting base in their country, which we will have a look later in the slides. Okay, so this is quite an interesting data. So I would request all of you to like note down the interesting points, because by the end of the presentation, you might just have some data points which you'll be able to connect. So basically connecting the dots here. So here's the second table tells you about the yarn, where India has a major market share in the global trade, which is around 14% compared to the market share of China, which is around 21%. So we have a global competitiveness here because we have a second largest market share. And in home textiles, we have around 11%. And in apparels, we have a very, very low market share, which is very low market share in the global trade. And likewise in fabrics also, we have a low market share. So in yarn and home textile, India has a global competitive advantage. Okay, so now why is this textile value chain named as part one is because it is, so yarn is basically manufactured from natural fibers and from man-made fibers. So here we'll be talking about the natural fiber process. So the first step is raw material sourcing. Now, raw material is majorly cotton here, and we are a cotton surplus country, and we have a very, very strong base of cotton. So raw material is secured for us. Then from this cotton fibers, we produce yarn. So yarn is manufactured by cotton fiber, and this part of the value chain is highly organized. Like 80% of the industry is organized. And we are globally competitive in this segment in terms of variety, cost, production quality. In all these terms, we are globally competitive, which was also shown in the market share that we have in the global trade. So this part of the business, we are globally competitive. The next part of the business, which is weaving and knitting. Okay, so this sector is the weakest. This part is the weakest in the supply chain, in the entire value chain. Why? Because 95% of the fabric is made in very small scale industries. Okay, it's highly unorganized, and so that is why this acts to be the weakest, because we have old technology. There has been very low modernization happening in this part of the industry, whereas we have shuttle looms and shuttle-less looms. So out of shuttle-less loom is the modern technology, whereas shuttle loom is the older technology. So out of all the number of weaving 25 to 30 lakh weaving looms that we have, only we just have 4% which is into shuttle-less looms. So this part makes us globally uncompetitive right now because we have low modernization, high tariff, high production costs, so that's why you're not able to compete in this field. And it's highly fragmented also. Then comes the processing where we dye the stuff and finished fabric is manufactured. Then comes from the fabric we make apparels, homemade textiles, home textiles and other made up. So this is the textile value chain. Again, in the apparel segment, we have very low investment base in the country when I compare it to the global world. So here the investments have been pretty low, and whereas the other smaller countries like uh, Bangladesh, Vietnam have been able to gain market share. So what impacted India's textile industry in the last few years? Basically, demonetization, GST, and these are the factors which unorganized, low modernization cement. In handmade fibers, we have higher competition and compared to the global levels. And here in the apparels, we have low investments. Now, cost competitiveness, when I compare it with the global trade, with the global countries. So here, if we talk about labor wages, India is very competitive in terms of wages, which with respect to China and Vietnam, whereas we are a little higher in with when I compare it to Bangladesh. Power cost, we are comparable in terms of power cost with other nations. When given subsidies, we are actually very effective. And lending rates is also like effective when also because of the capital subsidy that we get. So here we are comparatively fine in this. And these factors are basically the major parameters, to become competitive in the long run. So it's very important to compare how this fares out. Okay. So now the global supply chain during the pandemic got realigned. This is the current scenario, what is happening. So here, if I talk about I have done a scenario analysis of this China plus one strategy. Now, if we just talk about China, the total exports is around $284.5 billion, right? And even if 1% of this export market comes to India, now we have understood that India can, because we have a presence across the value chain, India is the best alternative that we can have. It's a possibility. So 284.5 uh, for this, even if 1% of this export comes to India, the opportunity that it creates is around 20,000 crores. So that's a huge market. So this is the kind of opportunity that China plus one strategy can have for us. Now, if I talk about the second one, the China share is expected to come down in the global trade. Now, if you look at this chart, basically it talks about the major apparel suppliers to the US. So if you see this, the black part in the chart highlights the Chinese share, and which has been reducing from 36% to 20% over the years. So even in last 2 years, we had from 30 to 24%. So China has been losing market share in the apparel suppliers, whereas Vietnam and Bangladesh have been increasing their market share. And India has fairly, because we do not have a large presence in the apparel segment, so has been just able to gain 1% of the market share. So this is the major apparel suppliers to the European Union. So here also, if we see, China has been reducing market share. China has been losing market share here also, while Bangladesh and Turkey have been gaining market share here in the EU market. And India has just managed to gain 1% here. And also, some countries are given benefits, like we have a tariff, we have a trade barrier when we supply to the European markets, whereas Bangladesh, Pakistan, they do not have any such entry barriers. We attract a tariff of around 9.6% when we export to the European Union. So that's why we have a low market share there. So when I compare Bangladesh versus Vietnam versus India, so Vietnam has a very big advantage in terms of its sourcing raw material from China, because it takes like few days, and to supply raw material from China to India. So Vietnam has a strong garmenting base. They do not have a strong raw material like cotton and yarn. So they are import dependent for raw materials. Also, the labor cost in Vietnam, which was a major advantage few years back, has been increasing because as other industries are getting developed and uh, other industries are getting developed and there is a limited availability of labor. So this has increased the labor cost there. So when I talk about Bangladesh, they also have a duty-free access to Europe. So that's how also they become competitive apart from labor cost arbitrage that they have. In the US market, there is no duty differential between Bangladesh and India. So if I talk about home textiles, we have a huge market share in the US, which is around 51% in the bed linen and the 41% in towels. So there we have a strong presence because there is no entry barrier or no duty differential there. So if this right now India is in talks with the US FTA trade, if that comes into play, then a whole new market will open up for us. Okay, so this is the textile value chain, the part two, where it is the man-made fiber value chain. So basically, here crude oil is refined, and we get PTA and MEG chips, which is supplied mainly by Reliance. We have other players also, IOCL and Mitsubishi, but the majority of the market is by Reliance Industries only. So that part of the industry is quite organized again. So that's how from those chips, fibers are made and then hence processed yarn, and it's a similar process. So here we have been, so if I talk about the natural fibers, it constitutes around 81% in our total production. And man-made fibers is around 19%. If I talk about the yarn production, cotton spun yarn is around 71%, and the man-made fiber is around 29%. And the share has increased in the last 5 years of man-made fiber. So this industry is also like the PTA MEG part of the raw material industry. It's quite organized. Whereas we are the second largest producer. We produce around 75% in the man-made fiber is polyester and the rest is viscose. So but we have a higher cost of production here. So seeing the numbers here, we can assume that the industry is still at a very nascent stage, and this part of the value chain is also garnering government support. So if I talk about the government support, ATUFS, this is a fund scheme basically giving credit-linked capital subsidy to promote investments in this sector. There was a recent abolition of anti-dumping duty on PTA MEG, and the government is setting up integrated textile parks right now. During the COVID, they came up with these schemes in one of the reforms, and basically it is to assist medium and small scale industries to help and provide them with world-class infrastructure and all. And this is the PLI scheme which they are giving in man-made fibers and technical textiles. ROCTL and RODTEP is basically, they are the export incentives given to textile companies who are exporting to other nations. So in July 2021, they extended it to Jan 2024, hence making it globally competitive. Okay, so now let's talk about the Indian textile industry. Indian textile industry is expected to grow at a CAGR of 10%, where apparel contributes around 73% of the total TNA market in India. And these are the exports data. So we are expected to grow to $65 billion by 2025, which is a CAGR of 11% over the years. So this is the export market of India, where we export the major cotton yarn. So China is a importer of yarn. Okay, they have huge yarn processing capacities, And we export 33% of our yarns to China, followed by Bangladesh and then Pakistan. Because Bangladesh and Pakistan, Bangladesh, they do not have uh, the downstream segments. And why, apparel actually contributes a major part of the trade is also because of a higher value. Whereas if we are exporter, if you see, we have a very low contribution in the global trade is because we are very good at yarn and cotton, which is of less value than the apparels where we do not have a huge presence. So that's why the numbers come out to be low in our total global trade. This is for the apparels, and majority is in the US to the developed nations, European Union, and the UK. Okay, so this is the cotton price trend, and the blue line tells us about the Indian cotton prices, whereas the orange line talks about the international cotton. Okay, so Indian cotton is comparatively cheaper, and in the previous slides also we saw that and the yellow line is about the Chinese cotton. So we saw that India's cotton is 30% less expensive than the Chinese cotton. And likewise, if you see the graph, we are comparatively cheaper, which actually benefits our exports, because the cotton that we have is basically raw material arbitrage that comes into play while global exports happen. So now this is the yarn exports data that everyone can have a look at. So 50% is 58% of our export is in the cotton yarn. And the second table actually tells you about how the fabric sector is unorganized. Because if you see 95% of this fabric, 95 to 97% of this fabric is produced in the smaller sector. So which basically tells us that it is highly fragmented. And why the sector is fragmented is also because there are low entry barriers in this industry. The apparel segment is there. We have a low entry barrier is because uh, the technology is available. You People can know the know-how, and not like very huge investments. So that so all these factors make this segment a low entry barrier business, and that is why we have like all these business mushroomed in our country, and the sector has grown horizontally and not vertically. So this is primarily the reason why this sector has grown this way. Uh, okay, so now technical textile industry, which is a new arena of growth right now. This sector is growing like anything. So what is technical textiles is so what is common between diapers, uh, fishing nets, automotive fabrics, medical textiles. So what is common between them is that there is technical textiles. There is this textile which is used, and they are combined with cotton and man-made. Okay, so it's highly technical. It actually depends on the usage and how you need to have that kind of a material. So it's highly technical in that sense, and this sector is growing, and it is garnering government support also. So around 15 to 20% growth rate is expected in this industry, and exports are also huge. Okay, so now after understanding the value chain, understanding the macro data, let's identify which part of the value chain holds the most value. So the first part, which is spinning, it's organized. We have a good market share. We are globally competitive. So this sector can be a beneficiary. This part of the value chain can be a beneficiary. And if there is a backward or a forward integrated player, it would be a good preferable play because they are larger players. They can mobilize the working capital requirement, and they can have a good control on the supply chain. So yes, this part of the business can do well. Apparels or exports. Now apparels, why have I mentioned here is that India might have a low contribution to the global trade, but India as a country, I think, cannot be ignored in terms of textiles. So, and we are a huge market. We are expected to grow at a CAGR of 10%. So even if there is like small orders in this segment, the order books of apparels will definitely shoot up if they are the leading players. So that is why apparels can be a favorable play here. And also exports, the companies who are exporting, because at this point of time, like 3-4 months back, we saw that domestic demand in textiles hasn't picked up very much. Like the export markets were doing pretty well, but the domestic market had did not pick up. So companies who have a larger export exposure would be a more preferable one. Now, when I talk about home textiles, we saw that we have a huge market share. We are as competitive as the Chinese because we have large capacities, we are well integrated, and we have a good market share in the US. So, which tells volumes about our quality. So, I think this sector also is a huge beneficiary, and also from the work from home trend and the China Plus One strategy is benefiting this industry too. So I have figured out these three segments where these three criteria where before before zero down on a company, before identifying a company basically. So in all these segments, I have identified few companies. Uh, yeah. So these are the major players, and these are not a recommendation. So if I talk about the Indian apparel industry in particular, the exports, the RMG of all textiles, the ready-made garments contributes the higher share, followed by the cotton yarn fabric, which is shown in this pie chart. Around 41.7% is the ready-made garments of all textiles. India's garment and made-up exports, if you see, cotton contributes around 53%, whereas synthetic garments and other garments contribute around 22% and 25% respectively. So this is the chart basically showing the garment and made-up exports. Now, what's the industry business model here, which is very, very important to understand? Speed in retail is very, very important. Now, what happens is you need to have a very, very less lead time. And if that's possible, I think good to go. So outsourcing speeds production, says the apparel brand owners. So if you talk about H&M, Gap, Nike, these are the leading brands, right? So H&M do not have any manufacturing facilities on their own. Okay. So they basically procure their fabrics and their garments from players like which I mentioned in the major players like Gokuldas Exports. So they are mainly dependent on these companies for their sourcing. Okay, so if H&M is growing, then these companies are also growing, right? So they follow very asset light model. They do not have any manufacturing facilities. Rather, they have to focus on building their brands. They need to focus on increasing their distribution network and developing that. So that's how these companies work. See, similar model is followed by Nike. Nike also 100% manufacturing is outsourced, and by Gap also, and several other brands. So what happens in this part, if you think that the apparel sourcing or retail industry is expected to grow, then we as a country like Gokuldas or KPR means we get an exposure to many such brands, because none of the company would be supplying to just one brand. They would be supplying to two, three, four more companies, five, six more companies they would be supplying to. So we get to be a part of growth of many other companies and not just one. So this is comparatively a less risky model for us if we think in terms of like taking exposure to any of these companies. So again, I've already talked about consolidation where buyers are actually preferring strategic vendors, and the tail end suppliers are getting removed from the supply chain. And so yeah, this is about the changes in the supply chain in the apparel sector. And this is a graph which is talking about, how the US apparel retail sales have recovered post COVID. When I was saying that, export markets are doing pretty well when the domestic market was not doing well. So this is the graph, and also talking about how China is losing market share and how other countries are gaining market share. So this is basically a news article clipping, which basically tells us about how the China Plus One strategy is working. So when you hear the concalls of so many companies, one thing which we figured out is that China Plus One strategy is here to stay. I mean, these are some structural changes, and when of course, we need to track data if this is on point or not. But if there are any structural changes in any of the industry, it can actually change the business environment. It can be a huge beneficiary generally, but we need to keep tracking the data also if that our thesis is on track or not. So this is a clipping which basically talks about that how this company was actually previously sourcing from China and how they are applying to other countries and other companies like in India coming up, that you can develop this fabric for us, and the orders are being fulfilled by India. Okay, so now these are the top apparel exporters of India, led by Shahi Exports. So if you see this table, you will see that the industry has grown by almost 2 times, 1.8x, and some of the leading apparel companies have grown more than the industry growth also. Like if you see Shahi Exports, if you see Shivalik Films, they have grown by more than the industry growth also in the last 5 years, from 2013 to 2018. So even if the industry is even if we are a very low in terms of apparel exports in the global trade, but still our industry is growing and the leading players are growing. So this gives us a sense that in this case also the leading apparel brand owners can be the beneficiary in this scenario, in the current scenario. Okay, so now let's talk about the Indian home textiles, and we have a 11% market share in the global trade. US is a very large and homogeneous market, so making it more attractive. European market is heterogeneous. It provides preferential tariff rates to across different competing countries, and India is one of the fastest growing. So yeah, so this is a share of home textile exports. China has around 37%, whereas India has around 11%, Turkey is around 8%. Likewise, Pakistan and Belgium have 7 and 5% respectively. So India is the second largest exporter, market leader in the US with 47% share, very competitive, and large scale players as compared to the Chinese capacities, and we are well integrated also. Like if I mention the major players, Indocount, Welspun, Himmat Singh, they all are well integrated players also, which benefits the suppliers. And this sector is basically also flourishing because of the this also flourished because of the work from home environment, where every time you had to stay at home, so people were investing into home furnishing, into home textile, like good bed linens. So this sector also flourished during the lockdown. So this is the duty structure which I was talking about, and certain countries actually attract duties, whereas some other countries do not. So they have gained market share. So if this is talking about the home textiles cotton sheet, and if you look at this graph, in 2019, India's share were around 50%, whereas it has grown to around 59% till the Q1 of the current year. Whereas if you see in China, they have lost market share from 19 to 11%, and Pakistan, it's almost the same, and others also, it's almost the same. This is about the cotton pillowcase. The similar kind of a trend is visible. This is in US imports of cotton bedspread. Similar kind of a market is seen. This is about the pillow covers and the bedsheet exports to US, where you will see how Pakistan has actually gained market share in this segment because they attract zero duty. So they have eventually gained market share of what the share has been lost by China. So we are not a major player there because of the duty. So we become less competitive in this area, in this to the EU market. So these are the advantages which we already talked about. So market leader, good fit, huge scope of growth in EU if the trade comes into play, if the FTA comes into place. and cost competitiveness. India's advantage over China and Pakistan. So we are the largest cotton producer, whereas Pakistan is a net importer. Surplus, we have a surplus available, whereas China is losing export competitiveness because of power cost, rising power cost, wage inflation, whereas we have been having a favorable government policies and competitive cost. So this is the last segment which I'll be talking about in the textile sector. It's kids wear. So kids wear is basically manufacturing of infant wear and kids wear is very specialized business. We have to adhere to stringent quality norms. We have a high degree of complexity because in terms of smaller batch size, more designs and all of that sort, and we need to have high reliability also in the entire value chain. So this part of the business is I think a very high entry barrier kind of a business. And yeah, so and India can be a lead source destination for kids wear. Supply is because cotton is the most preferred raw material for cotton is the most preferred fabric for children's wear because it's very comfortable, very soft. And product development capabilities give India an edge over the competitors is because we are not a very large scale producer. We do not do bulk production. We provide customized solution like the companies which I mentioned in the kids wear, the major players are SP Apparels and Kitex Garments in the listed space. So, so basically, like a company like SP Apparels, they are more into customized solutions, are more into customized design. So they have a integrated business model from production design to the manufacturing of apparels. So that's how India becomes a preferable player, unlike the Chinese, which are into bulk production. And also we have a presence across the value chain. So because this is a very important factor for kids wear, because you have to have because high reliability is required basically. uh, Industry business model, again, it's like a similar kind of a business model followed as compared to apparel segment. uh, Basically the brands prefer to outsource their production and they focus on marketing strategies, building their global network and expanding their distribution network. So a leading kids wear brand called Carter's, it's based in the US. They do not have any manufacturing facilities. Rather, they procure all their requirements from Asian countries, from Latin America, and all of these countries. They source their requirements from. So these are the key risks and also the parameters that one needs to check, if our investment thesis is on track. Raw material price fluctuation. It's very important if there's a increase or decrease in the cotton price because that can affect the spreads. Foreign exchange rate fluctuation, recurrence of COVID wave because again it's important. Client concentration and geography concentration is basically if you research on any of these companies, like many of them have, you know, okay, this much percentage, like 25 to 30% is supplied by one country or one customer. So if that customer is not doing well, then the revenue can take a drag. So try and think about whether there's a client concentration and geography concentration also. Change in the government policies. Right now, the sector is having a favorable government policy. So check if that's in place or not. Exports. So companies who are exporting, they are facing logistic problems, like because of the shortage of containers, it's taking a huge time. So do keep a track on that also. If that's in place, then I think good to go. Labor intensive, it is a very labor intensive industry. So possibility of workers strike. So if there's any worker strike by any company, or please do check before in advance. So these are also the similar parameters to check if your investment thesis is on track or not. So raw material price fluctuation, cotton prices to estimate spreads, foreign exchange rate fluctuation because majority is export exposure. We have exports are significant. Recurrence of COVID wave, government policies, and export data on track. Whether we think that the China plus one strategy or consolidation in the industry is happening or not. So thank you so much. Over to you. And if you have any questions regarding the presentation or the sector, would be happy to answer.
Thanks a lot, Kunjan, for such a detailed presentation. Most of the questions I think were answered in the presentation itself. I just have a few questions, which if you would like to
Okay.
answer. So, one of the questions is that you mentioned in the presentation about market cycles in the textile industry. So, I wanted to understand that how are these business cycles different from the ones we see in metals and commodity businesses, which are more cyclical. So, if you can shed some light on that.
Metals and commodities you mentioned.
Yeah, how is the business
Okay.
cycle in textile different from that? Because from textile we expect the demand will generally be stable because people need clothes all the time.
Yeah, people, that's what we think, that people will buy clothes all the time there, but that is there. But how is it different is that it's not like comparable to metal, or it's not that cyclical also. But it's in terms of raw materials. Like sometimes, but the clothes would be demanded when the economic cycle is doing well, when there's a growth, when you're earning well, when you're so you will buy more clothes, right? Otherwise, you will just be satisfied with what you have. So if you have a good salary, or if your income is growing, then I think that's in that terms, major demand will come from that side, right? Like home textiles, if you see, the demand increased because of the work from home culture. If there was a work from home culture, the demand increased, right? So, and also in terms of cyclical, in terms of raw materials, in raw material cycle, cotton is something which is, not very, that, the prices will remain stable over time. Again, the production would, because India, okay, so if there is a drought, or if there is any less rainfall in other regions also, the production of cotton decreases and the price increases, right? So in terms of raw material supply also, it is highly cyclical. In terms of crude oil and man-made fiber also, it is, that industry also works in a cyclical way. So it's not like a FMCG kind of a product, which I meant, that whether you will buy biscuits or you will buy food whenever you have it, whether it is irrespective, the demand is inelastic for that, right? But for here in this case, the growth would come if there are like sectoral tailwinds. Otherwise, it is working as it is working. Because of this China plus one strategy, again, this sector has come into play. So there are a lot of intricacies. How is it different from, metals and commodities?
Understood. I think that answers my question. Another question I had was, so you mentioned some of the key risks to consider before investing in this space, as well as some parameters to keep a track of to know that you are going in the right direction. I just wanted your opinion on what are the key financial metrics to look at while analyzing a company in the textile industry. What are the key numbers that you should focus on?
So also first check, like, for if I talk about spinning, or if I talk about, check the growth data. Okay, how the company has performed when the cycle was not doing well. So in 2017 and 18 times, and also if I, like the previous question you asked me, some of them are commodities, essential commodities. Like if I talk about man-made fibers, nylon is a commodity. The price is determined by, how there is a production in China, or how the global production is happening, and that's how the price is determined. So if I talk about in specific, so right now, what parameters you should check is that, how the industry has uh, evolved over time, how the company has evolved over time. See the growth metrics, how the company has performed when the sector was not doing well. Okay, check the growth rate, check the cash flows, how the company, because textiles can be really debt ridden. There can be huge debts on these companies. So check if the debt to equity ratio is fine or not. Of course, with other parameters like valuations, check also do check about the cash flows, if they're generating good healthy cash flows or not, and also the working capital cycle, because it is very very important in this sector. Because the working capital requirement is huge, and the cycle is a little longer than, you compare it to other sectors. So it's very important how the company is doing that. So check all of these metrics, and yeah, and how, of course, when the company is a leading player, uh, if they are well integrated or not, if there's a backward integration, forward integration. In terms of qualitative, but financials, I think you should check all of these. And in which sector or in which area of the business, check if the capital allocation skills of the management, if they are doing like allocating to which part of the value chain a little more than the other segments. So how is that thing prospering? So check all of these factors. And I think, yeah.
One final question I had, which I think are important when you're looking at these companies, as you mentioned that there can be huge geographic and company specific risk when you are exporting to certain countries or certain companies. You might be exposed to one particular player to a huge extent. So if I want to check certain data on a company, that where exactly can we find such information? Would it be available in financial statements, con calls? Like, what is the concentration?
This data would be yeah. So this data you will find in the con calls. You will find in the investor presentation also, and also in the annual reports. So you'll be able to find out, which country is the company exporting to, where is the majority share coming from. And if you don't find it in the financial statements or the investor presentation, do ask in the con call. I think in all the previous con calls you'll be able to find it, if not in the annual report or the investor presentation.
Great. I think that's it from my end when it comes to questions. Thanks a lot, Gunjan, for making such a detailed presentation and sharing your research with us. I hope you also enjoyed presenting to us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed the presentation.